Hi, you're watching India Prime. I'm Sana Khan. On the show tonight, the debate around one of the most talked about issues that have taken centre stage in the country, Triple Talaq. And the 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court, headed by Chief Justice J.S. Kehar, has its task cut out. Over the next 6 working days, the court said, and today, in fact, the hearing started, it said it will hear the petitions from Shaida Bano and others and pronounce the verdict. WION will bring you daily updates from the court on India Prime, and do watch out this space for more detailed and a comprehensive coverage. This is what happened on the first day of deliberations in the Apex Court. Well, the Supreme Court said that it will rule only on the constitutional validity of oral divorce and not on polygamy. It said, and I quote, "If we come to a conclusion that Triple Talaq is part of the fundamental right to religion, we would not interfere. We will also determine whether Triple Talaq is sacramental and whether it can be enforced as a fundamental right." Counsel for the All India Muslim Personal Law Board and Congress leader Kapil Sibal in court said, and I quote him, "The central government makes rules, but in my opinion, the Apex Court should not interfere into it," unquote. In fact, WION also spoke to amicus curiae in the case Salman Khurshid. Jessica Taneja spoke to him. Let's listen in.
We have the senior counsel, Mr. Salman Khurshid, who is assisting the Apex Court today while hearing the issue of Triple Talaq. Sir, today you began by saying that calling, in fact, Triple Talaq a non-issue?
It's a non-issue because it's not validated by any verse of the Holy Quran. It is not something that historically has legitimacy. There were a couple of occasions on which it was recognized in the history of Islam, which were very special, unique to that particular time. But generally, world over, all the scholars and the wise persons involved in interpreting Islam believe that there is no such thing as Triple Talaq.
So also another important question, this Triple Talaq issue was not explored during the time of Congress. Why do you think it has come to or elevated to a level that it is today?
Well, things have to happen as you move forward and maturity comes in any society. People start asking questions, and this is something that's been brought to the court by women who feel very strongly about it, and they have come and placed their arguments to say that we are adversely affected by the practice. Now the court will decide whether such a practice is a legitimate practice or not.
Also, the government is calling this unconstitutional. They're calling Triple Talaq unconstitutional, and similarly planning to codify the Muslim personal laws. How do you view this?
I don't think that the government should rush in and call things unconstitutional. I don't, for instance, say that Gau Rakshaks are unconstitutional. It's only an aberration. It's something that is not acceptable under the law of the land. And if something is not consistent with the law of the land, then it has no legal value. It has no standing. And then whatever rights you want to exercise against it, you have a legitimate right to do so.
Also, my last question to you, sir. Triple Talaq is, not currently entertained by the constitution of various Muslim majority countries. Why is it still applicable in India then?
But it's not applicable in India. I'm saying it's not applicable in India. Now, if somebody wants to do something which has no legitimate ground for doing, then what can you do? Unless it's made a criminal offence, it's something which has no legal consequence at all.
Right. Thank you for speaking to us, sir. This will continue for another 6 days. We will have to wait and see on what order is reserved by the Supreme Court. And after 6 days, we'll get to know more details on how this case progresses. A case like Triple Talaq has gripped the country at the moment. This is Jessica Taneja with video journalist Chavez for WION in New Delhi.
Indeed, this is an issue that refuses to leave the headlines. The centre is pitching it as an issue of fundamental rights, whereas the Congress is calling it a non-issue. On the show tonight, there are some questions that we are asking. For instance, why the debate on this issue when it clearly appears to be a fundamental right? Also, should the courts intervene in what's being portrayed as a religious issue? The third question, is the opposition disregarding fundamental rights of Muslim women and are shoring up their vote bank? And when Islamic countries have abolished this practice, why is India still struggling to do away with this practice? India, which is a secular country. And finally, what is the decision of the Supreme Court likely to be? Of course, that is something which we cannot really debate on, the matter being sub judice. But on the show with me this evening is Shiba Aslam Fehmi. She is editor, writer, research scholar on Islam as well. Also with me here in the studio is Nazia Erim. She is an author of an upcoming book which is titled Mothering a Muslim, also a TEDx speaker. And joining us live from Mumbai is Shama Mohammed, Congress spokesperson. We're hoping to be joined in by Shazia Ilmi, who is the BJP spokesperson, for more on this, for what the BJP has to say when the hearings are on. But the big question is what the court is also going to decide upon. Does religion override the constitution? The court is going to think about it. It's a rather complex matter. Let me start by asking you, Ms. Fehmi, what do you have to say on this? It's a tough task ahead of the Supreme Court.
Well, it isn't that tough actually. The Quran is very clear. If the law of the land is clashing with the law of the Quran, the law of the land shall prevail. Quran is very clear on that, that it doesn't want to jeopardize Muslim lives wherever they are, whether they are a minority or majority, whether they are within Islamic state or non-Islamic state or secular state. So there is no dilemma over there. That law of the land has to prevail. I'll give you an example also. When this Domestic Violence Act was passed, there was a question, and we were joking about it within our groups, my feminist groups, that all the interpretations of Maulanas tell that Muslim men has the right to beat the wife. But after this Domestic Violence Act, that Quranic right has been taken away, and there is no hue and cry about that. So they have agreed in that personal matter only, in the family matter only, they have agreed the law of the land earlier also.
Okay,
there is
so
no
for
point.
You, the point is very simple.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see, because right now it seems to be a very complex issue. Nazia, do you think there is a lot of issue as far as the Triple Talaq is concerned, its interpretation is concerned? There is a lot of confusion at this point. Nobody is clear. People think that saying the word talaq thrice means that the divorce has just happened.
You know, it's actually very clear. If you talk about the Quran, it lays on a very straight procedure that 3 months, 3 settings, arbitration from both sides, which is there in the most modern of laws. So actually there is no problem. But the problem comes when the boys club, that is the patriarchal system that we have in a society, decides to make its own laws and then make their own punishments for it. Like the All India Muslim Personal Law Board was talking about social boycotting people. I mean, who's going to boycott who? So actually the law is very clear. When it comes to jugaad of the patriarchy, we need to really, but that is a problem that everywhere, and it's actually quite shocking how much it has seeped into the Muslim community.
Right. But you know, many people say that the word triple talaq is a misnomer in itself. In fact, according to the Quran, the word, if uttered once, also compounds to be, you know, a divorce. The proceedings start from there on. We really have to see how the matter goes on in the Supreme Court. But Shama, thanks so much for joining us. I want to take your perspective on this. The Congress today, we see that they've backed what happened in court, what Salman Khurshid really said today, the amicus curiae in the case. What is the Congress party's stand? Do you feel that this issue has been politicized despite the Prime Minister coming out openly and saying that it shouldn't be?
I really do think the Prime Minister has politicized this. This is something which the women of Muslim women have been fighting for years. If you know that Zakia Soman of the Bharatiya Mahila Muslim Andolan has been fighting it for the last 10 years. So the Prime Minister before the UP elections talks about it, Ravi Shankar Prasad talks about it, and after the elections are over, the Prime Minister says to the various ulemas and Maulvis that please don't politicize this, when he's already politicizes. Of course, the Congress party is against this instant triple talaq, and this is an aberration, like Mr. Salman Khurshid said, and it should not be there. And like everybody on this panel, all Muslim women on this panel know that triple talaq is not in the Holy Quran. It is not there, and we should get rid of it at the earliest. It's something which is not there in the Holy Quran.
But Shama, do you agree with the way things are unfolding? Do you agree with that? Do you think the court should decide, or do you think the community at large should have come up with a solution long back?
No, the community, now the thing is the All India Muslim Personal Board, it's a patriarchal, regressive, redundant organization is taking up these decisions. So for a Muslim from South, where I come from, nobody knows what is All India Muslim Personal Law Board. It's an NGO. It's nobody to give out laws and rules. It just was acting on the Muslim Personal Law Act of 1937. So I really don't understand who has brought in these laws, you know. So according to me, it should go away. Triple Talaq should.
You know, if you look at history, it said the law, what we see today or how it's portrayed, it seems to be completely distorted as well. But that's another matter. Ms. Femi wanted to respond. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question to Ms. Shama also. That do you realize that because Congress has just missed the bus and they could not do when they had all the 2 full tenures to look into the matter. In 2002, I started this campaign in my own magazine, and it is much before that also people have been talking, and all the law specialists have been talking about it. It is just that Congress have been cozying up with all these patriarchal bodies, whether it is Mushawarat, whether it is Muslim Personal Law Board, whether it is Jamiyat or Jamaat. So let us understand that now Congress has no face to tell us that it has been politicized. You have been politicizing it in the favor of patriarchy. It is and I am very happy that it is not being done through the government. It is being done through the state suo moto measure, where no one can turn the blind eye to the atrocities that Muslim women are suffering.
Highlight this issue. In fact, Shazia Ilmi is now joining us on India Prime. Shazia, thanks so much for joining us. We started talking about the Supreme Court and the task that it has ahead of it. It's a huge task. The next 6 days are going to be very crucial. But the question over here is, one cannot look at the political part of this whole debate. Do you think that parties are taking undue advantage of the community by politicizing it as well to an extent? What does the BJP have to say on that?
Well, BJP, as being the ruling party and the party in power, has made its stand amply clear. There is no ambiguity whatsoever, and that is in the recommendations of the Law Commission that is being presented. The Attorney General will be presenting the government's point of view, the Law Ministry's point of view, which is pro-gender justice. And also, it's very, very clear that something that is not permissible in Quran, which is not there as a practice in the Muslim nations, Islamic nations, where Shariat is actually practiced, something that is contravenes the spirit of Constitution, and something that is so pernicious and inhuman cannot be allowed to prevail. So not just in the name of gender justice, but also as a human right, and also something that is frowned upon by none less than the Holy Book, Al-Quran itself. By all measures, this triple talaq or instant triple talaq or talaq-e-biddat has to be abolished, has to be done away with. And not just that, I'll go a step further.
Right.
To prevent men from going ahead and just leaving women as destitutes, there has to be a punishment so that this serves as a disincentive for them, and also some kind of compensation for women who go through this, who become destitute.
Right. I take your point, Ms. Shazia Ilmi, but you know,
so there has to be more accountability.
Triple talaq, you know, is one of the 8 ways in which a person can go ahead with divorce in Islam. Do you think it's that big an issue? You know what happened today in the Supreme Court? I'm sure Salman Khurshid, he said that this is a non-issue. What would you say to that?
Well, you know, what do you expect from Kapil Sibbal, who is a lawyer for All India Muslim Personal Law Board, or Salman Khurshid? They were with the same law board, which is just a registered NGO, with no legal sanctity or even religious sanctity whatsoever. It is just an NGO which is a stooge of the Congress, because of which many of the members have been members of the Minority Commission for many years. So they're doing more of the same. But in doing so, and in the cheap politics, they are really taking away the rights of Muslim women. They're reducing the life of a Muslim woman to that lacks dignity. So I would really like to appeal to these politicians like Salman Khurshid and Kapil Sibbal,
right,
and also members of the law board, not to malign the religion, and actually serve the cause of Muslim women and Quran as well.
Well said.
A very quick reaction from Shama, and then I'll come to you, Nazia, and then we're going to play out some political reactions. Shama, would you like to respond to what Shazia Ilmi has just said?
Yes, a couple of things. Shazi Ilmi talks about gender justice. Now, gender justice comes only for Muslim women when the Muslim Personal Law Act is codified. Unless and until that is not codified, we won't get justice totally, because there's a lot of things like alimony, maintenance, child custody, many other things which come into it. Now, if you're talking again about gender justice, we also need to talk about how many women are educated in the country. The men is 82%, women is 65%.
Right.
We need to talk about the rapes. We need to talk about female feticide. So there are various things if you want to talk about gender injustice or justice. Number two, can I speak?
Yeah,
I think
please, Shama, go ahead.
Then, of course, Mr. Manish Tiwari is the lawyer. Yes, Manish Tiwari is the lawyer for many of the Muslim women. So Mr. Salman Khurshid is also aiding. So pointing fingers at the Congress party is very wrong. I've categorically said that we are completely against Triple Talaq and we don't need to politicize it. There are a lot of us fighting against it, a lot of us women.
Right.
And,
in fact, Shama,
need to politicize
one of the points is that which you mentioned is
let him educate all the women.
The rot runs much deeper. It has to do with women not being educated as well, being financially dependent on their husbands. There is so much insecurity, and therefore this becomes rather big, this issue. Nazia, very quick reaction from you.
Let's look at the bigger picture. What do such television debates, or what do the entire media focus on Triple Talaq actually end up doing? It is not a non-issue. It is an issue even if it is a minority within a minority. Because what are we doing by what are the kind of picture are we sending to our young women? We are killing them aspirationally. We are telling them this is it. These are the issues around which you need to move around.
Right.
But no, we need to talk, education is one part. Empowerment is much more than education. Even the most educated right now are talking about, some of them are talking about going for Triple Talaq. So education is one part, empowerment is a more holistic approach that we need.
Very quickly, we are going to play out some political reactions and be right back. Let's listen in.
ये ऐतिहासिक दिन है, ऐतिहासिक कदम उठाने जा रहा है सुप्रीम कोर्ट, क्योंकि ट्रिपल तलाक पर पहले ही बहुत चर्चा हुई है और मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ बोर्ड ने अगर इस पर पहले से अपना फैसला लिया होता तो अदालत में को भी आसानी होती.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji himself has said, this is not to be seen in context of a political issue. It is not a political issue. It's an issue related to the rights. We need to bear in mind that we are a constitutional driven country. The country runs on the constitution. The constitution gives each one of us an identity as an Indian and an identity of equality. We are all equal before law, Article 14.
तलाक के मामले में हम बराबर कह रहे हैं कि पर्सनल लॉ बोर्ड को भी निशाना बनाने से कोई हासिल नहीं. मुसलमानों को चाहिए कुरान खोले, उसमें सूरह तलाक मौजूद है. तलाक का पूरा प्रोसीजर अल्लाह ने खुद बता दिया है. तो जब कुरान में एक चीज़ मौजूद है तो फिर किसी अदालत की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं पेश आती.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने पहले भी इस देश की महिलाओं को न्याय दिलाया है. उनका अधिकार जो संविधान उन्हें देता है वो सारे अधिकार सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने महिलाओं को दिलाए हैं. पीछे भी जब महिलाओं को मंदिर में रोक थी प्रवेश की या दरगाह में रोक थी प्रवेश की, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने महिलाओं को मंदिर और दरगाह में प्रवेश का अधिकार दिलाया. तमाम पहले भी महिलाओं को अधिकार सुप्रीम कोर्ट से मिले हैं. हमें पूरा विश्वास है कि हमारे मुस्लिम समाज की महिलाओं को भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट से न्याय मिलेगा.
Now, at the risk of sounding feminist, I'll have to say that, there is a whole myth about, Muslims being resistant to reform. But, for the benefit of our viewers, let's point out that Islam came as a movement of reform of the existing social order. Even times back in the 7th century, Islam granted a woman right to divorce and then get married again. So over the years, it seems that personal laws have been concocted to suit just a few. Having said that, it's very interesting to look at. People talk about this all the time. And I'm going to pose this question to my panelists this evening. So many Islamic countries in the world have done away with the practices of Triple Talaq. Why is it that India hasn't been able to do so? I want to know this. India, remember, is not an Islamic country. We follow different faiths. We are a secular country. That means it becomes that much more tougher to distinguish between what we know as equal rights for women and the politics of the whole matter, which I believe is a big part of it. Let me start by you, Ms. Femi.
Actually, it is because since, as you said, that so many Muslim countries have already ushered in all these reforms, and Indian Muslim community that is existing in the constitutional democracy could not do it. It is only because of the exceptional minorityism that has crept into the community with this feeling that we are under siege. Islam khatre mein hai. Islam is always in danger, and because of that reason, all the internal issues, internal problems, and the atrocities inside the
we don't dare to come out and question.
Should not be brought in the open, should not be discussed in the open, and the denial mode that continues, that because Islam is perfect, so Muslim society is also perfect. It is not so. The Muslim practice is very different from the ideological positions of Islam and the idealism of Islam. As Bernard Shaw has said, that Islam is the best religion practiced by the worst of the people. So that is the we cannot interchange the Muslim Islamic idealism with Muslim reality. That is one thing we understand.
I absolutely agree with Shiba here, because as you pointed out, the Islam came at a place when talked about progress, being a progressive society, at a time when things were really far from it. The first woman, the first person who accepted Islam was a woman who was a CEO of her company. She ran the biggest company out there, import-export business at that time, which far superseded any other business out there. And she married somebody who was much younger to her. She proposed to that person, that person was a prophet. So is our patriarchy telling our young women that this is how you should be, that you should be the CEO of your company? But no, what are they telling us? That look, you have no rights. Triple Talaq is the way.
Ms. Shazia Ilmi, why do you think India hasn't been able to do what other nations are doing? Is it mainly because the politics surrounding it? What is the intent? Are we genuinely concerned about giving equal rights to women, or are we adopting a different path, not going the right way about it? Why haven't we been able to do so?
I would like to agree with my predecessor, somebody who spoke just before me. If you see Hazrat Khadija's example, she actually was the first believer, when after the Prophet, may peace be upon him, when Quran was dawned upon him, so to speak. So just imagine where she came from, and just see, and we all are Khadija's daughters, so to speak. But just see what has been taught to us. So whatever is being taught by the so-called ulema were a very obscurantist approach. And also because they were deemed to be controlling a certain vote bank. And that is the kind of politics, of identity politics, that has prevailed in our country, because of a party which has been in power for close to 5 to 6 decades. And the best example of that is the Shah Bano case. You just have to revisit history. It was a watershed mark in the history of this country, why Mullah Dam was succumbed to, so to speak, at the altar of gender justice, at the altar of true Quranic inscriptions.
That
is really
I got your point, but
I don't think it should be seen from that prism at all.
But
I think when we talk about
very quickly, I have to go to Shama before we wrap up. Shama, you have 30 seconds. Please wrap up fast.
Yeah, the BJP has this habit of getting the Shah Bano case, and we can also say that we had amended the Hindu Succession Act 2005. We have done that. And another thing is, I come from a state where Muslims have never been appeased. We are socially, politically, economically, educationally empowered, and that's Kerala. And there we had the Congress government governing most of the time. So please don't point fingers at the Congress party. I'm a prime example, and I know the Muslims are completely empowered in that state compared to the rest of India. So there is no appeasement there. There are no appeasement of Maulvis. There are no appeasement of mullahs. Everybody is educated, and appeasement has never taken place over there. So that is a prime example. And I agree on that thing about most of the things in Islam is to protect women. Even covering up the 4 wives also is to prevent the concubines and all those stories.
So, ladies, we're completely out of time. It's been a great discussion. I have to wrap up. The big question in front of the Supreme Court now is, to what extent will it go in pronouncing the verdict? Also, it is said it will not talk about polygamy, but and to what extent will it meddle in the personal laws, because that really will open up the Pandora's box. A very crucial verdict coming up next week. Thanks so much, all of you, Shazia Ilmi, Nazia, Ms. Femi and Shama, for joining me on the show. We are taking a short break on India Prime. Be right back with other news and updates.